everyone. Thanks for coming in early to our virtual waiting room. While you're waiting for service to start, what is something that you are looking really forward to coming up in the next couple days, weeks, months, whatever it is? Go ahead and let us know in the chat. So this week is our last week in our Tomorrowland series. If you could learn one thing from your future self that has no importance on how your life will turn out, I'm not talking who you're going to marry, when you're going to die, some inconsequential thing your future self could tell you, what would that be? For me, it'd probably deal with things going on sale. That way I know when to buy things so I don't have to pay full price. Let us know what you would ask your future self in the chat. What is your go-to karaoke song? Whether you're in the shower, in the car, or at an actual karaoke bar, which I have never seen in person, what is your go-to song to sing your heart out? Let us know in the chat. Thanks for hanging out with us. We are about to start, so be sure to throw this up on the biggest screen you've got, turn up the volume, and get ready. Welcome to Discovery.
To Discovery Online, would you stand with us wherever you are to sing praise and worship to our true King? Sing that praise. The praise you weapon that silences the enemy. The praise you weapon that conquers all anxiety. Let it rise. Let praise arise. in Psalm 12:6, it tells us that the promises of the Lord are pure, that they go through the fire and they're refined, and they are strong like silver. And as we sing this next song, I hope that you find the promises of the Lord, that they're everything that you could ever need. And then I think on this song, and I think on the promises of the Lord, and I think of how we don't deserve it, but how he continues to pour it out and he continues to provide that for us. So today, would you just surrender that? God, your promises are more than enough for me. Let's sing this. The weight of life begins to fall. The name of Jesus I will call. He's in control. For I know my God is in control. His purpose is unshakable. Doesn't matter what I feel, doesn't matter what I see, my hope will always be your promises to me. Now you're casting out all fear, for your love has set me free. My hope will always be your promises to me. Walk into the days to come. Won't forget, will not forget what you've done. Your supplies, for you have supplied my every need. Oh, your presence is enough for me. Doesn't matter what I feel, doesn't matter what I see, my hope will always be your promises to me. Now you're casting out all fear, for your love has set me free. My hope will always be your promises to me. Promises to me. You've always been more than enough for me. You've always been more than enough for me. Nothing's gonna stop the plans you've made. Nothing's gonna take your love away. You'll always be more than enough for me. You'll always be more than enough for me. Yes, you will. You'll always be more than enough for me. Nothing's gonna stop the plans you've made. Nothing's gonna take your love away. You'll always be more than enough for me. Oh, come on, declare that. You'll always be more than enough for me. Oh, you'll always be more than enough for me. Nothing's gonna stop the plans you made. Nothing's gonna take your love away. You'll always be more than enough for
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for coming to church online with us today. My name is Travis. I'm the children's pastor here at Discovery. I oversee babies through 5th grade on a weekly basis, and I just want to let you know about a couple of things we've got coming up and let you know some reminders we want to make sure you've got on your radar. Last week, we had Missy from Bethany Christian Services here talking about how we can help them help the orphans in our area, whether that's through adoption or foster care or just through partnering financially with them. So if you'd like more information about how to get connected, be sure to text the word child to the number on your screen, and someone will be in touch with you about how you can get more connected with them. Coming up this summer, we're going to be having CIY Move and Mix for our middle and high school students, just like we normally would, except it'll be here in town. It'll be 3 days per event, and the cost has been reduced to $75. The event is going to be just as fun and amazing as it normally would be, just you get to save a lot of money, and it's right here in town. So for more information, be sure to go to discoverypgh.com/students to sign up or find out more. The last thing we want to let you know about is that we will be having a Next Steps class digitally Sunday right after our 11 o'clock service. We'll drop a link in the chat for the Zoom meeting that we'll be having it in. So if you want to find out more about our church or get better connected, be sure to join that meeting. So today is our last week in our series Tomorrowland, and everyone else has gotten a call from their future self. And so this means that this week is my turn to hear from my future self, and I'm just so excited. Okay. Here I am. Hello. Travis. What are you doing?
98. 99.
Stop working out, man.
100.
Hey.
Woo. Oh, hey.
Yeah, hey.
Hang on. Let me get this off real quick.
Okay.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good, man. How are you?
Yeah, they've, oh, let me turn this
Okay.
off. Alexa, end workout simulation.
Ending virtual workout. Congratulations, Travis. You set a new personal
Oh,
record.
way to go, me.
Yeah, they've really improved VR here since 2020. I mean, even these weights, I mean, they're just the controllers. They've incorporated holograms so they look just like weights, and
Holy
they
cow.
can adjust the weight inside of them to make them actually give you resistance.
Wow. That's awesome.
Now, you and I have seen Back to the Future too many times
Sure.
to just go and start breaking the rules of time travel willy-nilly.
Of course.
So I won't tell you anything about the future, but I will say thank you.
For what?
For taking the leap. You finally shaved your head because you couldn't get to any hair salons, and you just quit fighting the inevitable receding hairline that genetics has fated us with.
Sure.
And you finally shaved your head, so thank you. It has given us a major confidence boost to really lean into this new rugged look we've got going on.
You look good. But like, are we a gym rat now? Have I lost myself in the fitness?
No, you're not a gym rat. Look at me. Do I look like I'm at Planet Fitness? I'm at home playing video games to work out.
Okay.
We are still us.
Okay. Thank
Don't
goodness.
worry.
I was worried,
Now,
not gonna
I
lie.
do have to get going.
Wait, well, you just got here.
I'm coming.
Is that Hannah? You like?
you too.
Are you taking her to a movie or something? What?
No, Han and I have to go to a meeting together.
You have to go meeting. Do you two work together now or something? What?
Well, it's not a work meeting per se.
Where?
It's the annual Disney stockholders meeting.
what?
We're the majority shareholders.
Wait, we're the
It's a whole
majority-
thing. You'll figure it out. We
No,
have to go.
wait. I need to know like
We'll
when
figure
I
it
should
out.
buy the
Yeah,
stocks
yeah,
and
we have to go. Okay,
and
we'll see you later.
Okay. Well, I have a lot to look forward to, I guess. Thanks for joining us for the last week in our series, Tomorrowland.
We could momentarily escape from our 21st century lives and fill the room with stereophonic music from another age. A mock-up of a possible future telephone. Now, if I want to see the people I'm talking with, I just turn the button and... The children of the 21st century might be educated by a computer at home. There's something old and familiar in it to remind us that both the present and the future are really merely extensions of the past.
Just 3 words can change everything. Simple sentences with simple words can be packed with power and meaning. And the tension they create, they force us to act. Can you think of some examples? The classic, of course, is I love you. Those scary words have the power to make or break a relationship. Or what about its opposite, I'm leaving you, spoken by a parent or spouse or a child? Maybe just the three awkward, almost childish words, what's your name? They can start a lifelong friendship with a neighbor. Or what about those scary words, I need help, or on the other side, those words, can I help? 3 words spoken this past week that were full of power and pain, words where you've heard before, I can't breathe. George Floyd said them most recently as he begged for his life. Before him, a man named Eric Gardner said them. Both the victims of police brutality and excessive force and racism that led to their untimely, unjust death. Powerful words that will hopefully change everything. What about some words that are full of implications and promises? Yes, we can, or make America great, sometimes empty, to some extremely inspiring, to others incredibly intimidating. I want to talk about 3 powerful words that I think we all need to have on our lips more often right now. Words that my wife says, I don't say enough. Maybe you don't either. I don't know. Let's Blue's Clues this thing. Will you repeat after me? I don't know. All together now. I don't know. Whew. I remember this moment vividly my freshman year when one of my college professors told me that as he got older and he's got smarter, the more he learned, the more comfortable he became with boldly and confidently saying, I don't know. And honestly, I lost a little respect for him in that moment. I expected him to be able to teach me everything, especially what was in his field. Over the next few years, I quickly gained much more respect for him than I'd ever had before, because he not only had learned a lot about a lot, he also had learned in the process how little he knew about everything else. And if you want to try to gain wisdom, especially from the literature in the Bible, you'll learn those 3 words very, very quickly. Take, for example, Proverbs 3. I love the way the Message puts it. Trust God from the bottom of your heart. Don't try to figure out everything on your own. Listen for God's voice in everything you do. Everywhere you go, He's the one who will keep you on track. Don't assume that you know it all. Run to God. Run from evil. Your body will glow with health. Your very bones will vibrate with life. We worry saying, I don't know, simply makes us look weak, but the wise sage that wrote these words in the Bible say, no, I don't know is a sign of strength. One pastor throughout this season has been calling for a posture of holy uncertainty, and it links it back to many of the wise thinkers in the Christian tradition. It's the power to live in the tension of not knowing but trusting the one who does. The truth is, in this season, very little is known, and just when you think you do, it seems like all the information changes. On May 12th, which is surely out of date by now, Vox listed 11 questions we still had. It included questions about the timetable for a vaccine and what exactly it will look like until we see it. If children are widespread carriers, how many have actually had it? We don't know when things will reopen, if there will be another outbreak. We don't even know if we'll be able to watch sports on TV this year. The list is long and broad of what we don't know. Almost every media outlet has released a story just like this, lists upon lists of unanswered questions. When we face those missing facts, it can produce in us this cocktail of fear and grief and confusion. And admitting that we don't know naturally makes us feel vulnerable. Like Janie talked about a few weeks ago, vulnerability leaves us feeling exposed, and we oftentimes try to cover it up. When we're disoriented, we'll naturally try to stabilize ourselves. We grasp for something, anything that might help us not feel so helpless. Over the last few weeks, we've seen the rise of a number of unhelpful attempts to control, like these. 1, blaming. China, Trump, Obama, and even somehow Bill Gates. If we can put a name or a face to the complexity of the responsibility in this, it feels like we're starting to move forward. Secondly, obsessive behavior. When we know we can't control something, we oftentimes try to resort to tyrannical control over the things that we do influence. This might look like simply this Marie Kondoing of our place or reorganizing it all, but it can also look like irrational frustration as we try to control the behavior of the people in our homes. Much more dangerous than the ones before. 3, magical thinking. Yes, that's a real term. Look it up. In Sri Lanka, there are rumors that only white handkerchiefs can stop the spread. In the Philippines, it's volcanic ash that can kill the virus. In Iran, one cleric became the butt of many jokes when he claimed that if you brush your hair and eat onions and put violet oil in a very intimate place, that it can cure or prevent it. Our own magical medicine and treatment rumors are circulating in America. This also takes the form of speculation about ulterior motives of a deep state or corporate conspiracies. As we've been exposed to more and more misinformation and distractions, people are scrambling for control, and they've begun to cling to serious, slanderous, and unsubstantiated claims about what's really going on. I read last year that the most likely people to embrace conspiracy theories are young Christians. Researcher Ed Stetzer has written a series of articles warning about this. His most recent headline reads this way: "On Christians spreading corona conspiracies, gullibility is not a spiritual gift." As Christians especially, we should be ravenous advocates for truth, and yet somehow we're statistically the most susceptible to lies. We all need to be more careful, vet our sources when we're sharing things, and reevaluate our own opinions and perspectives. The coronavirus is not a nefarious plot by some Illuminati, but it is a nefarious plot by evil. You might even say the devil. To disrupt our world, to murder our vulnerable, to make us turn against each other and create more distrust and chaos than already exists. As Christians, we can't fall into the trap of magical thinking. Lastly, most commonly and subtly, we begin to make a lot of predictions. We're all trying to explain and speculate about what the new normal will be like. Everyone has a hot take on what's next. Recently, we've all been in meetings, we've passed around articles, and we've scoured social media for any prophet that might give us an edge in the world to come. The world will never be the same, we say. But are we sure? We flew more after 9/11 than before. America had record attendance in church and mass gatherings following the 1918 pandemic. The imagery in this whole Tomorrowland series calls to mind the many futuristic predictions from years ago: flying cars, household robots, food in the form of pills. We love watching those old movies like Back to the Future 2, laughing at how far off the predictions are from the past, completely missed the reality of the future. As one opinion columnist wrote recently, the public square is thick today with prophets claiming to foresee the post-COVID world to come. I have been pursued by foreign journalists asking what the pandemic will mean for the future, and they seem awfully put out when I say I have no idea. Almost subliminally, they're telling him, "You know your lines, just say them." In our experience in the West, we don't handle being out of control very well. We don't have to say, "I don't know" very much. We walk around with devices that will tell us the weather, directions, and answer any question we might have about the world. Commercials pound us daily with solutions to control the most inane problems in our lives. We have predictive text and predictive marketing that knows you're pregnant before you do, predictive models for the economy and weather, and we try to control so much, but we've all been shocked, especially recently, to realize just how little we actually control the future. Addiction often is the result of scrambling for control when things feel uncontrollable. We can learn a lot from recovering addicts, especially how to pray. One of their favorite prayers is called the Serenity Prayer. It was actually developed by one of the most important Christian thinkers recently, Reinhold Niebuhr. Will you read it along with me? Serenity now! Here's the real one in its original form. Father, give us the courage to change what must be altered, serenity to accept what cannot be helped, and the insight to know the one from the other. Our ability to thrive rests in the balance between embracing what we can control and truly understanding what we can't. That's why a season like this is so shocking to our system. We couldn't predict it, and we couldn't plan for it. So what does this mean? As we're constantly recalibrating our expectations of the future, maybe we can learn a new way to make plans and predictions. My hope today is to help you have a practical, biblical way to move forward to plan through the unknowable. James, actually Jesus' half-brother, it's a small miracle. Jesus' own brother believed he was God. Pretty good proof there's something to that claim. He was writing to a number of Christians who had been forced to uproot their lives and settle in a new city. So James is writing to them to kind of reset their perspective and their lifestyle, and specifically in this section, the way that they're thinking about planning. This is what he writes in the midst of their unknown future to those trying to make plans and those scared to make them now. He says, "Listen, those of you who are boasting, today or tomorrow we'll go to another city and we'll spend some time and we'll go into business and we'll make heaps and heaps of profit. But you don't have a clue what tomorrow may bring. For your fleeting life is but a warm breath of air that is visible in the cold only for a moment and then vanishes. Instead, you should say, our tomorrows are in the Lord's hands. And if he is willing, we will live life to its fullest and do this or that. But here you are boasting in your ignorance, for to be presumptuous about what you'll do tomorrow is evil. So if you know of an opportunity to do the right thing today, yet you refrain from doing it, you're guilty of sin. A few months ago, this advice might have seemed a little bit more shocking to us than it does now. I've loved following those memes where people will post a picture that represents their plans for this year and a second that represents how 2020 screwed them up. For example, we'll go Seinfeld again. We've all got a little bit of Summer of George going on, right? Or for our Office fans and plans, 2020 has tripped us all. Or here's one from my childhood, and one more for you sports types. Some of you had to cancel anniversary trips you've been saving up for. Monumental moments like graduations and weddings have been seemingly robbed from some of us. Businesses, projects, and jobs have all been thrown into chaos. James warns us that at any moment, a 2020 could happen again. Plans are derailed, while before we might have presumptuously planned a lot, our default now might almost be the fear to plan anything, knowing that they're all very tentative. If you're like me, you really can't imagine what the fall or the summer might look like, let alone next week. Some of James's audience, uprooted refugees in a new city, probably had the same hesitancy. What James wants to do for both the prideful planners and the nervous procrastinators is give us a new way to start planning. And James, I think we can identify 5 key questions we can ask ourselves during this season and after this season to make sure our plans are really worth making. By the way, if you find these questions helpful, we've put together a kind of planning rubric in the message notes, so you can find that through our app. I think this advice can apply to the boardroom, the living room, and the classroom. You don't even have to say where you got these ideas from. It can just be our little secret that it came from a 2,000-year-old letter about Jesus. I hope these questions have long, durable legs for many years to come. The first question that James seems to encourage us to ask about ourselves is this: what can we actually know about the future? And as we've already spent a lot of time talking about, probably not a lot, he writes that we plan and plan and plan, but you don't have a clue what tomorrow may bring. He's saying we should approach the future with humility. This is actually a really key theme in this part of his letter. Just a few sentences earlier, he rhetorically asked, why is there so much conflict and comparison between you and your friends and your coworkers and neighbors? He says it's because of your jealousy and your selfish motives. How often do our planning meetings, even between spouses and friends, become competitions? Who has the best idea? Who has the most preparation? Who has the strongest opinion or the loudest voice? Insecurity and pride swell in those moments and oftentimes keep some of the most insightful voices in the room intimidated or self-conscious or angry and not thinking straight. So he reminds them, as the scriptures say, God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. When we're dreaming and planning, James encourages us to strip away our pretension and pride and start with humility. He's saying that the most and best plans are explored in a humble environment. The next question James asks is, who can it possibly benefit? Not who would this benefit, but who can it benefit? Does your planning keep in mind the good of not just the CEO or the stockholders, but every employee down to the custodial staff or factory workers? Is your vacation plan or plan to move actually about your whole family, or is it about your career or your status? Is your home remodel actually the best thing for your family, or will it make your budget so tight that it makes you uptight with anxiety? Many of us have gotten used to making plans without everyone it impacts in mind, especially companies, right? But this question also speaks to another group of us. While James is warning those who are arrogantly making plans, he also is warning those who are prone to procrastinate and to inaction. Those who are afraid to try something because we know it could fail or we're worried about the consequences. He writes this surprising, convicting statement. So if you know of an opportunity to do the right thing today, and yet you refrain from doing it, you're guilty of sin. When we think of the idea of sin, we usually think about behavior or actions that break a rule, but James is saying, no, evil wins when we don't do what we know is good. Are your plans born out of either selfishness or fear? James calls us to courage and reminds us to use every opportunity to benefit as many people as possible. That easily leads into James's next question, which surrounds our legacy. He reminds us kind of bluntly just how short our lives are. Your life is like the morning fog. It's here a little while, then it's gone. Maybe that's obvious enough in a time of a pandemic, but our fragility is something we're prone to forget most other times. I was shocked and humbled by the cover of the New York Times last Sunday. It listed 1,000 names of 100,000 that have passed away from the coronavirus in America. In brief obituaries, it said names like this: Alan Lund, 81, Washington, conductor with the most amazing ear. Teresa Aloy, 63, New Orleans, renowned for her business making detailed pins and corsages. Kobe Adolph, 44, Chicago entrepreneur and adventurer. We will all speak at our own funeral. It doesn't matter what the eulogist says or the nice platitudes from family or friends. We all know what kind of life that person lived, for better or worse. Do you remember your great-great-grandfather's name? Shh, Ancestry.com nerds like Travis, you're ruining this illustration. Most of what we worry about, fret over, work hard for, get angry about, and apply our whole lives towards will be forgotten. So, when your plan is over and done, will it matter? Will it really matter? How do we even know? Here at Discovery, we've spent the last 7 weeks talking about an eternity that we've called Tomorrowland. Will the things we plan in our life make an impact in both our imminent and ultimate future? Will our vacations breathe life into our marriages? Then it matters. Will our company stand for something bigger than our profits? Then it matters. Will our health goals give us the joy and energy to love our neighbors well? Then it matters. We should pour ourselves into things that will last. James is pleading with us to make our plans with eternity in mind. So in view of all of that, James also asks us maybe the most important question we can learn, especially from this season: what's worth changing the plan? Inevitably, someone will throw a wrench in our plans. We will be faced with interruptions no matter how well we've thought it through. This is hard for me. Sam is the opposite. This past weekend, I had plans to work on this message, do some other things, but Sam wanted to see her family. Of course, with all of the caveats and safe practices and all that stuff, but I cognitively knew that going there was far more important than getting a jump on this. But I can't tell you how hard it was for me to change course, the conversations and the compromises we made. It's a small example, but if it's that hard for me in small plans, how much harder is it for me and maybe you in bigger plans? Try to determine early in your planning which interruptions matter most. I think James would resonate with the famous line that's attributed to Dwight D. Eisenhower: plans are worthless, but planning is everything. What if the process of planning was far more important than the results, because it develops in us a skill set that is not just good for forecasting the future, but improvising when it changes? The need for course correction isn't the result of bad planning. It's the result of good enough planning that we can see when and where things need to change. Are you ready to be interrupted for the right reasons? Sometimes all we need to do is plan as much as possible, then close our computers, say a little prayer, chuckle to ourselves, knowing just how likely these things will change, and go grab dinner. Lastly, James asks, are the right people planning this? Do we have the right person in the room? And another wise Proverbs, we're warned plans go wrong for lack of advice, but many advisors bring success. Are we listening to the right voices, to the voices of those this plan impacts most, those who have been there before, those who know more? This is a great question you hopefully are already asking in board meetings and family meetings, but really, James's key point in this whole hypothetical scenario is that there's one specific voice missing, a voice that should obviously be involved but is regularly ignored. These two business partners are listening to each other, but they're not listening to God. He says we should say, if it's God's will, we will go and do this or that. It's easy to think this is just some cliche caveat in our language, but what he's really asking is if we're considering the most powerful, loving, smartest, creative being in the universe when we're trying to figure out what's next. We say here all the time that God wants to partner with us in making all things new, to work alongside us, to make the most of our lives. All of these questions you can easily use in the boardroom, but how can you use this specific version of that question to include God in your corporate or school board meetings? You can always get God's voice in the room through you. It's okay not to know the future, but we're also encouraged to try wisely to make some plans with God's help for the future. We hold our expectations, our vision, our future loosely, and we let God, who knows best and knows most and knows what's coming, shape them. The big idea for today is pretty simple. God brings heaven to earth when his followers surrender their plans for his purposes. That means that the country of Tomorrowland, the world to come that's on the horizon and already starting somehow in your life, it has an unexpected flag. It looks like this. Many people think it's a flag that represents weakness, but it's actually a flag that represents hope. It's a symbol of surrender. We give up what we want for something much better. What God knows is best, what God wants in this world, because in all reality, that's what we actually want and even what we actually need. It's the flag of the people that actually know they don't know. They need guidance. They need direction. They need a fresh start. This flag symbol has come to mean something else. And over the last few months, our friends in El Salvador recently posted that there, the white flags are waving through the city to represent hunger. It's a symbol calling for help. I'd like to think it's a perfect use of our flag, calling people like you and me, Tomorrowland people, to help. I don't know are 3 powerful words. They're a lot like another powerful 3-word sentence that goes like this: I surrender all. I give up. I'm tired of the rat race. I'm tired of trying to do it all on my own. I'm tired of having all the answers. I'm tired of the baggage I can't get rid of. If that's you, maybe it's time to wave a new flag with a new leader, Jesus. If you need to surrender something today, your plans or your future or even your life to fully follow God's will, will you just put yourself out there and type me in the chat? We'll have somebody follow up with you about what that looks like. Our prayer is that as we all begin to plan for the future, we'll ask ourselves a few new questions. And when the moment calls for it, confidently and humbly declare as much as necessary, I don't know, but I'm making plans with someone who does.
Well, Jesus modeled the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate surrender on the cross for us, and that is still alive today. And I think about Jesus' life and his sacrifice and how that has made a way for us to be able to surrender. And as Todd talked about, of waving our white flag and being able to surrender, to come to the feet of Jesus, we just invite you right now to go ahead and grab those elements for communion, the juice that represents the blood of Christ that was poured out, and the bread that represents his body that was made as the perfect and the living sacrifice for each and every one of us. So we invite you to go ahead and take that during this song, and then join us in singing this song that just declares, God, I want you to be the king of my heart, that you would be the refuge, the stronghold that I would just run to in times where I'm in victory, but also in times where I'm feeling hopeless and lost, and ultimately a place where we can just lay down our surrender to him. So we invite you to go ahead and to take communion.
Let the king of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the king of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. You are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good.
Thanks so much for worshiping with us today. We're so excited that you're here. We want to get to know you, though, so text CONNECT to the number that's on the screen below if you're new. Have a great weekend.